Hi everyone, Travis with Flux here. Thank you for joining me today in our training on the new Ad Hoc Builder. This training is focused mainly on the configuration of the new builder as well as using the new builder to create ad hoc reports. This is going to be a brief overview, discussing the new functionality provided within the builder. We will be hosting a workshop in January to go over every aspect in more detail. If you should have any questions during the webinar, please type it in the questions section. We'll be dedicating the last 15 minutes for questions and answers, so we'll be saving all of your questions for then. If we do not get to your question in time, we'll try to curate those and answer them offline in an extended Q&A. Let's get started. In this webinar, we will be covering the following topics: types of ad hoc reports, including Excel reports, pivot tables, and PDF reports; admin panel configurations, where to enable the new ad hoc builder as well as set favorite fields; building reports, setting filters and runtime filters to narrow down your results; and report settings, where you can make your report a live report or a standard export to XLS report for a given card. And as I did say earlier, there will be a Q&A after the review. So the first thing I'd like to do is explain the differences between the types of reports that you can run with the ad hoc builder. The first type, and most commonly run ad hoc report, is the Excel report type. This type of report allows you to grab a number of different fields and create a spreadsheet of all the data contained within. You can utilize it as a standalone report, as a live report, or make it the main export to XLS report on a given card. A reason you may want to do this is if you'd like to pull in fields from different cards that are not available on the standard export to XLS. The next type of report that is new to Flux is the pivot table. Now keep in mind, this is still being fine-tuned by developers, and it currently allows you to select one field per row, column, and data. We'll touch briefly on what kind of information you can obtain from this later on in this webinar. The final type of report is the PDF report, which is used for letter and template creation. This is also still having some final touches made to it by developers, so we won't cover this tool too extensively today. So the next thing I want to show you is where in the admin panel you can find the configurations that are available for ad hoc building. This setting is not new, but this is where you will enable ad hoc reporting, and you can label this the way you would like it to appear in the add card menu under the ad hoc report section. For instance, this one is labeled ad hoc reports. You may label it any other type of reports that you would like to. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom of the general settings section of the global admin section, you will see where the new builder can be enabled. This can be turned on or off at any time and will not affect any previously created reports, except that you will be able to use the new builder on existing reports. The final setting in the admin panel is in card settings under field lists. This is something that does not need to be configured, but is simply there for your convenience. It can be used to create a filter of frequently used fields. For instance, the main type of card you will want to use when creating ad hoc reports is the grant request card. The reason for this is that nearly all cards are connected to the grant request, which will allow you to pull in a significant amount of data. So here's where you can select most commonly used fields. For instance, if you find yourself always using the program organization field, the name field, which is just the name of the organization, it would make sense to have this in this list, along with amount recommended, amount requested, and the grant or request ID. That way, when you want to select these commonly used fields, they will be readily available to choose. Give it a list name and check the box to use this list on the report builder. Now let's take a look at how this now appears in the builder. So here's the ad hoc report builder. It looks the same as the old one did. Now, but if you want to create a new report, you also just hit the plus there. You choose the type of model you would like to use. I will stress that it's usually best to select the grant request, since you can pull in for multiple different models. We can name this whatever you'd like, so just I'm going to make it the testing report. And from here, you can write a description if you'd like. That part is not required. You can select the report type. For this exercise, we will use an Excel, which again is the main type of report you'll run, which will provide a spreadsheet for you when you're finished. If you go into Advanced, this is where you can select if you want this report to show in your live report feed, or if you want to use it as your card export. So right now we're not going to select either of those. We're just going to click Save. And now the report is begun. So now you'll see where we selected those fields in the fields list in the card settings. You can see all the fields that are available for you quickly to pull from. So as I said, the program organization name, that's just basically your organization. And drag and drop it over there. We'll grab the request ID. We want the amount requested. Pull that over, amount recommended. And say now you're like, oh, I guess actually I kind of want the date it was created at. So to find that, you can just click on this drop down, go to all, and this will show you all the fields. You can just search created, and you'll see the created field. And you may or may not be able to see as I scroll over this, but it shows, when you scroll over, it'll show the created _at. So that'll show you with the backend name. So when you're searching, you're able to actually search for the front end and the backend name, which is definitely a large improvement over the old form builder. So I grab created at, and I'll drop it here. And I think that I want to move this up here so I can grab this and pull it. So I want it to appear there third. So the next new feature that is available on this new ad hoc builder, in the past, you would have to, when you were done, if you wanted to check and see that it was pulling in the correct fields, you would need to save your report, generate the document, and then download the document, which could take several minutes and was very frustrating. Now you have a preview option where you can click on the preview, and this will show you a snapshot of what this report will look like. It won't show you all the records. It generally shows about 20 records, but it'll make sure that you're pulling in the correct dates and the correct fields that you're looking for. So once you're actually done with that, so if you see that everything looks good, you can go into the filter. If you want this report to only cover specific programs or specific status, any kind of field that's available within the grant request filter, you can choose to make that filter available for that report only. Another nice feature is you can use the runtime filter, and so this one you could filter when you're actually running the report, and this will allow you to select if you want, for instance, to select a grant agreement date each time you run this report. You can just add that filter item in here. And once you do that, when you generate the report, it'll ask you, if there's multiple filter items on there, it'll ask you which one you want to filter by, and you can do it at that time. And then when you're finished with that, you click Save. And now you should see the new testing report that I just created. Okay, and so I'm just going to touch briefly on the other types of reports there are. The next one is the pivot, and we've already got one here created previously. So if I go into Edit here, I can see that this pivot table was created with the grant agreement fields, grant agreement and the program org name, along with the amount recommended. And we can take a quick look at how this list will appear in here. And one thing I didn't mention before is, it's not going to be a perfect view of how it's going to look. It's going to strip down the formatting. For instance, it won't show $signs in this view, but it's just, again, to get you an idea, just to make sure you're pulling in the correct fields, and when you actually generate the document, it will appear correctly. And so that's basic. Like, again, this is a pretty basic tool at this point, but you can see that this could be a very valuable tool once this is completed. I'm going to exit out of here, and then we'll just go quickly over the PDF report. Again, this is basically just generating documents that you already have completed within your organization. So this will just give you a breakdown of all the reports, and you can generate them all at once. And within here, you can show page numbers if you'd like. You can include a table of contents if there's multiples that you want to add to it. And you can render the document for each record or just for once. So if you do once, it'll basically combine them all into the spreadsheet. If you do it for each record, into the PDF file. If you do it for each record, it'll split out each one individually and make it look a little nicer. And then the last things I wanted to cover here was when I talked about adding it to the export and into the live reports. So if I go back into this ad hoc report test tool, and I can go back into edit report properties, and I still have the option to add it to live reports or to add it to the live card, use it as a card export. So I'll click save here, and I'll make sure and save here as well. And now when I do that, I may need to refresh the browser, but nope, there it is right there, ad hoc report test tool. Now that's available as a live report. And this is where, so on this particular report, we set up status as a runtime filter. So now if I only want to find records that are send back to PD, then I'll click generate report, and this will only generate the reports that have that status. And as far as the export to XLS, if you were to set it up in here, so when you come over here and click on the export to XLS button here, it would now generate that report that you just created rather than the initial one. Again, the only reason you may want to do this is if you're deciding that you want to pull in fields from the organization or for a payment record or things like that you can't normally do on the export to XLS. All right. Well, this concludes the webinar today on the Ad Hoc Builder. I hope you enjoyed it. All the features that are incomplete or that we did not cover in detail will be covered in next month's workshop or in trainings in the future. You may also learn about any of these features by visiting our knowledge base. Now let's open this up to some questions that we've received. The first question asks, will I still have access to the reports I have made previously once I enable the new builder? Yes, of course, you will not lose any of the reports that have already been created, but you will still be able to use the new builder and the new features on these reports that have been previously created. And another question that we have is, do I have to create and use the list in the admin panel? No, you don't have to use that at all. That is simply there for your convenience. Should you find that you're using similar fields over and over when you're creating a request ad hoc report, then it makes sense to add those if you're using those each time. But otherwise, you do not need to use it at all. You can simply use all fields and then search based on that. All right. Well, that is all we have for today. You will be able to find video recordings of past webinars and any continued Q&A on our knowledge base. So today we went over the new Ad Hoc Report Builder. We learned about the different types of reports that can be run, the most commonly used Excel report, along with the new pivot table report option and the PDF option. We showed you where in the admin panel you can make configurations for the Ad Hoc Builder. We built a report and set up filters and runtime filters, and we reviewed report settings. To learn more and access the video of this recording along with any extended Q&A, please visit our knowledge base at flux.io/knowledge. There you'll be able to find a list of our upcoming webinars, links to register for future webinars, and recordings of past webinars under training webinars. Feel free to reach out to us at training@fluxlabs.com for questions or suggestions for future webinars. And also feel free to send an email to support@fluxlabs.com if you experience any issues with the Ad Hoc Builder.